5, 4, 3, 2.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Good Nature.
Ooh, what's up, my juice lovers? Welcome to Good Nature Radio, episode 6, I believe. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, with my esteemed co-host, the number one juice business consultant in the world, Chef Ari Sexner. What's up, Ari?
How's it going?
And of course, the wonderful, the charismatic, the superstar, the amazing entrepreneur, Olivia Esquivel. What's up, Olivia?
I can send you a list of adjectives to use next time if you want. Not that those weren't great, but I don't want you to run out.
I should have thought about it for at least like 5 seconds before I
What's up, everybody?
tried to improv it. Good Nature Radio is the weekly Friday podcast where the juicing industry comes together to get help with starting and growing a juice bar, home-based juice business, or cold press juice delivery company. Podcast brought to you by Good Nature, the world leader in commercial cold press juicers and juice business consulting. 100% family-owned business since it was founded in 1976 by my dad, Dale Wetlaufer. If you'd like to send us a message, you can do that on goodnature.com/radio. You can leave a voicemail and we will answer your question if you're struggling about something in your business or you have a question about juicing. And also you can download some valuable resources there, such as the actual logs and list documents that Olivia uses in her juice bar to run her business every day.
Right.
And also we have a form there if you want a free 30-minute consultation with our consultant team, Ari and Olivia, about getting consulting for your juice business. You can fill out the form at goodnature.com/radio. All right. So getting into it. If anybody wants to watch Olivia's IG Live she did this week, you can check that out on the Southern Press Juicery or the Good Nature Instagram page. Olivia, why don't you just give the brief overview of what you went over this week?
Man, I don't want to brag, but I think it was a good one. Compared to last week, I lost coverage. I couldn't walk. I had a really rough week last week. So I came in strong this week. I went live from my smallest location, which I think is good for other places to see kind of how you can scale and have a larger place and then have a smaller place. So it's our smallest square footage location. It's our second one in Greenville. And I kind of just talked about fall flavors. I did a recipe of our number one smoothie that's trending right now. It's a apple crumble pie smoothie. It was actually, I think I tasted it for the first time. I thought I had tasted it before, but maybe I tasted it and I forgot it, but it was unbelievable. But aside from that, I basically talked about ways that I market within my store to help bring in more guests, help increase your sales, and really kind of give some guest education, since this is a product that we need to talk a lot about oftentimes with our guests. So I went through some of my actual signage, some of my street signage, in-store signage. So I don't know. I think it was a good one. We had some good questions and a lot of really good visuals. So I hope that that's helpful for you guys. And if you need help with anything like that, then, we're here.
Cool. I agree. It was an awesome episode of your IG Lives. Ready to go check that out?
Did you watch it, Charlie?
I watched some of it. No, I got on late. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. But the last 5 minutes that I saw was great. So I missed the first 15 minutes.
That was
go back and watch
the last part was the strongest.
Yeah, see, I know what I'm talking about. Congrats
it's like
to our
book.
Yeah,
you read the first and last.
Just get to the point, Olivia.
Or just listen to the audio version on like ×8 speed, and you're like, yeah, read the whole book in like an hour. Congrats to our friend Nori Ko, who we interviewed on the podcast.
Woo!
On episode 2. He completed his 100-mile marathon.
Man, that was incredible.
In Japan over the past weekend, fueled by beet juice, carrot juice, and dates and figs, I think.
Yeah.
But that was it. He wasn't doing any of the, sports drinks or gels or like, granola bars or anything. It was all just fruit and vegetable powered. So congrats to Nori. That's awesome.
Did you guys
Really
see?
impressive.
Did you see the pictures on his social?
Yeah.
Oh man, it looked like it was raining
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, he was wearing at the end. He was wearing like
Yeah.
a poncho and stuff. It was.
He kind of looked the same after 100 miles.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I'd expect to see him a little more tired, but
he looked the same.
know.
He
See
really
that.
did.
yeah.
It
It
was cool to hear him talk about how he was watching other runners take like the gels and and all
Mhm.
these different drinks and how he didn't even sleep, like he just kept going, and you could see like on his social, you could see him with friends, kind of, you could see all the juice, you can see his what does he have, an X1 Mini? You can
He has an M1 in his van.
an M1, yeah, you can see it like in the
Yeah.
background. It's so awesome.
Yeah. So awesome. That's really cool. He needs to be interviewed on the Rick Roll podcast or something. Because
Really?
that was no, he should be.
I know he should be.
'Cause- Or Rich Roll, is that his name?
He should be interviewed by
um,
somebody other than us. I'm saying.
Well, because Rich Roll, he got started. He was the same thing. He was an ultra marathon runner. So, and he's like, I think he's a vegan or vegetarian. Like, I feel like Nori would be the perfect guest for him. Pretty cool. Yeah. So Nori's inspired me. So my event's coming up this Sunday, my half Ironman. So I'm switching to complete vegan starting today. So
Oh,
I won't
wow.
be consuming any normal product. I actually usually do that for a couple days before the event, but today I'm starting a little bit earlier or this time. I don't know. I just feel like I burn energy a little bit cleaner when it's just fruit and vegetables.
you just feel lighter the day
Yeah.
of the event and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What are you going to do for
Just feel
your
like-
fuel during the event?
So I'm just using. So Nori has inspired me, but I'm afraid to completely switch my routine up
Yeah.
this close to the event.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick to. I have these like natural drink mix, which is like electrolytes and carbohydrate, like a few different kind of sugars and salts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not flavored or colored or anything. Doing that, and then I'm eating some like fig bars, like those kind of like more natural fig Newtons. So that's going to be my fuel mainly, and water, of course. But yeah, I went on a bike ride this weekend. I was planning on going 50 miles through hill country,
Mm.
and around like mile 37, I kind of like hit a wall.
Mm.
And I wasn't like out of breath, and my legs weren't sore. I just like ran out of energy.
Mm.
And so I made it home. So it ended up being like 42 miles total, but I had to take a bunch of breaks and stuff, and then did some research, and I wasn't consuming nearly enough energy on my ride. I just drank like one of the drink mixes and a couple bottles of water.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
and it was like ended up being a 3-hour ride. But they say every hour you're supposed to drink one of those and eat something. So I just
So
kind of
you're
ran
just-
out of.
You're like a car that ran out of gas. Just like cruise.
Yeah,
home.
and
It
there's
happens
even
to
a
me a
term
lot.
for the.
But in my car.
Yeah. In your
You ran
car.
out of figs.
I'm always like, am I gonna
Yeah,
make
right.
it? Am I gonna? I made it.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's a term for it. They call it bonking,
Oh,
like bonking out.
yeah.
And I read the description, like, oh, that's exactly what happened to me. You just like you just run out of
Yeah.
energy because your body like runs out of carbohydrates. I think if you're like into keto and you're used to running on like body fat and you're in ketosis, I think that doesn't happen because your body's processing like the stored energy instead of carbohydrates. So I think it's different if you're keto or running on carbs. It's like two different kind of energy.
Mm.
But anyway, I never really got into the keto stuff.
I'll
I like
store
carbs
that
too
in
much.
a
I like,
file back here in case I ever decide to run.
yeah, I like juice too much to do keto. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So someone messaged me on Instagram this week, and I get these messages occasionally asking about when the next JuiceCon is going to be.
Mm.
So I thought I would just briefly kind of describe our thought process on JuiceCon what right now. So we did our first one in 2018. Went really well. We sold out. We had a really small venue. I think there's like 175 tickets we sold or something. And then year 2, we did a huge in Miami. There's space for like 400 people or more. And we ended up not selling as many tickets as we hoped. We lost a lot of money on the event. It was a great event for the people there and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But we lost like, I don't even want to say how much money, but a ridiculous amount of money. Because since we sold out the first event, we figured, oh, maybe we can sell like double the amount of tickets, but it wasn't even close. We sold like maybe 220 paid tickets or something, plus guests and speakers and everything. So there's more people at the event, but not enough to cover our costs, not even close, even with the sponsorships and everything. So then as we were thinking about how can we do it better, and how can we make it a great event, have more people come, and not lose a bunch of money on it? The pandemic hit, so we rescheduled the third one, and then like we moved it back a year almost. And then as we're getting ready to plan that one, then like Omicron hit or something, everything started shutting down again. So we canceled that one, and that's kind of where we're at now. So now we're sort of out of the pandemic. But I'm a little hesitant to rush into replanning it because I still feel like I haven't totally figured out what the right format is. And this is something I'm talking to people about. Like Olivia, you're one of the people we talk a lot about this, and Ari about like what can we do? I would love it to be cheap to come to, right? Like we had to charge like $800, $900 a ticket on the last ones because the budget of throwing a live event is crazy. It's like
it's a venues that's
understand.
a problem, right? I mean, it's
you have to rent the venue, you have to pay you have to pay the AV people, you have to pay security, you have to pay for food, you have to pay for staff, you have to pay for electricity, you have to pay for internet.
Right.
It ends up being $200,000 to $300,000 to throw a 2-day event.
Yeah.
So crazy. It's just like you can't, and people complain about the ticket prices. Like, guys, we're not even making money on this. You can't sell tickets for $150 when you're paying $300,000 to rent this place.
But you can't. But on the other hand, like you can't deny that it is such a valuable experience, right? And so it would be, if it wasn't that valuable of an experience, I feel like it would be an easy business decision to just be like, well, we're not doing that again. But it is so valuable. Like even for me, for Chef Ari, like even though even if you're a speaker and you're not sitting there taking notes on how to open your first juice bar, there's such a breadth of people in there that, I mean, I was taking notes on people, that were in the audience that I was having conversations with. So it's like, I hate to lose that commonality of like everybody coming together and sharing. And I loved how you opened it up last time and just basically like cleared the air, Charlie. And you said, this is not a competition. None of us are in competition together. This is a safe space to talk about things, to ask hard questions. What are you charging? What are you making? What are you paying yourself? Like what, because really, I think that really set the tone for the entire weekend to be like, let's share and learn from one another. So it's like, gosh, I just don't want it to go away because
So how do we take? No, so I agree with you. So how do we keep that part of it?
Yeah,
and make it more accessible so more people can come,
right?
And not charge so much money. And like the most valuable part, I do think, is the networking and talking to people and meeting people. So how do we do that part of it? Maybe without a lot of the other stuff that's just kind of expensive and maybe not that valuable. Like, I don't know, like the parties and the food and like all that other stuff. And I
mean, so maybe you just cut that out. I don't know. I mean, I think the other thing is too, like I know Chef Ari, when you got off the stage, same thing happened to you that happened to all of us, that, this line forms of people that want to talk to you and, which is awesome. And we stood there and talked to all of them, but it's like they all want that one-on-one conversation with Chef or with Charlie or with me or with whoever else is on the panel. And, we learn from those conversations too. But so that's why, like I keep telling Charlie, I feel like some other events that I've done in the past that have been really helpful and more efficient, it felt like, is doing sort of these mini one-on-ones, 20, 25 minutes where you come ready with all of your questions for Chef Ari. This is the machine I'm using. This is my production. This is my sales. What am I missing on my food cost or whatever it is, right? And you've just got that one-on-one. But on the other hand, you've got 250 people, right? So it's like, how do you have enough time?
you got a few different factors
Yeah.
too. Like half the people are starting a juice bar,
Right.
you know, and the other half are looking to expand
Right.
or improve their
And
current
that's the
juice
other
bar,
thing
so-
too, is when you charge so much for a ticket, you kind of filter out. You like if someone's really just has this dream of opening a juice bar someday, it's kind of hard for them to justify
Right.
bringing 2 or 3 people and spending $2,000 and attending the event. And like on top of that, there's flights and hotels and everything.
But I did like
I
the way
mean,
you had it
my-
in different tracks. Like, you know, you remember you had like 2 different tracks of like if you're starting and if you're already. So that kind of like
Yeah. But
separated
then we had a
everybody
lot
out.
of complaints. Then we had a lot of complaints like I didn't like that I had to choose between what I wanted to see
Yeah.
because I just want to see it all. And like I think ideally, which is the direction I was going for the one we canceled recently, is you do so at the last ones we had 2 different rooms, 2 different stages, 2 different like presentations going
Mhm.
on. I think you do all the presentations in the main room with everybody present. But like maybe you do a presentation or a panel discussion to kind of set the tone and talk about 1 or 2 different topics, maybe a couple of sessions in a row. And then everybody breaks up and goes to workshops, one-on-ones,
Mm-hmm.
kind of maybe in the same theme as what the stuff that was just talked about on stage.
Yeah.
So maybe like half the morning is on stage stuff, half the morning is group stuff. Then you do lunch and then you come back for more sessions or maybe more group stuff and then sessions at the end or something. But you can kind of do it so like instead of having 2 different stages and 2 things going on, and
Right.
people have to choose what they want to see, you just kind of do it all together with more generic topics that apply to everyone, and then they can break up and choose something super specific like you know, like juicing creativity with Chef Ari, you go
Right,
to this
right.
room. You want like to talk about how you can drive more sales to your juice bar, you can go to Olivia's workshop. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be more smaller workshop stuff.
Yeah. And maybe there's an online version. I don't know. You know, like
I don't want to do that. I like everyone keeps suggesting we do something virtual.
Yeah.
But to me, like that's kind of what this podcast
Right.
is anyway.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
a lot of the stuff we do, you know,
Yeah.
the courses we're working on, like I think that's better than some weird virtual conference where I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like the most valuable part of the conference is being around other people.
Yeah, I agree.
And you're not doing that when you're doing like a virtual meeting or something. But-
Yeah.
So anyway, we will put another one on the calendar. We haven't yet. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it should be. If you have any suggestions, go ahead and leave us a voice message. Tell us what you'd like to see at JuiceCon, or if you've been to JuiceCon, maybe what your favorite parts of it were. We'd like to hear from you guys. And we will... I'm thinking it's obviously too late to do it this year. That's the other thing, is these things take a year to plan. I don't think a lot of people understand that. So when we cancel one, they'll be like, just like move it to Texas and we'll do it like next month. It's like, guys, it's just not the way it works.
I'm a big fan
And then-
of like mini juice cons. I think you should put Ari and I on
Yeah.
the road and do like mini, while we wait for the big one. Because the other thing is like the last one was supposed to be, where was it, in Vegas or something? Vegas or California? Like, no, the one that just got canceled.
San Diego.
San Diego, right? So like if you're on the East
Mhm.
Coast, you're like, oh my God, like that's a whole day of flying. And if I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna stay for a few days. And then now I'm like, do I bring my family? And same thing, it must feel the same way if you're coming to the East Coast, right? So maybe there's
Mhm.
like a solution where if it's an East Coast
Well, I mean,
year,
that was
you do a
was
mini-
the concept. That was the concept. We did West Coast and then East Coast and then
Right,
back
right,
to
right.
West Coast.
right? But maybe on those off
but-
years, you take like a mini one on the road, right?
Well, like we did the meetup here in Austin 2 months ago. That was pretty fun.
Right.
I mean, there's no reason you couldn't kind of turn that into like something that we're doing mostly juice tasting and the juicing contest, but you could also do a couple sessions and discussion stuff.
Yeah.
And that's super easy. Like renting out a restaurant for half a day and doing a little mini event, the budget's like 5% of doing a conference.
Yeah.
So
Right.
for like 5 or 10 grand, you can do this little event. But then if you make it into a conference, all of a sudden it's $200,000. It's crazy. You know, it's just like,
There's no stepping
know.
stone.
yeah, I know. So I do like the little local events, and I think we could do more of those. We just kind of need people in different places to kind of volunteer to help out, you know, like use their restaurant or juice bar, and yeah. Anyway, more on that later. We'll talk more about it. But I just want to give everyone an update. There is no date yet for the next one, but it'll likely be 2023.
That was the longest. There
Yeah.
is no update.
Update coming soon. Possible.
We'll update.
Yeah.
You. Oh gosh.
Oh, wow. We're already 20 minutes in. That's crazy. All right. Something sent shockwaves through the juicing industry this week. Some controversy. JK Juices publicly admitted to adding ascorbic acid to their juice, which I don't know. I found a little surprising, but I'm curious, Chef. Like, so just for everyone listening, ascorbic acid is vitamin C. It's derived from natural sources, obviously, and stuff, but it's still considered a chemical, right?
Well, it's synthetically extracted.
Right.
guess
So
from,
I mean, it's at least an additive,
Right.
and it is like a chemical. I guess it's not like. I mean, it is made in a lab, but I don't know if it's made from synthetic. I don't know.
It's pure vitamin C though.
Yeah.
So I mean, this topic it's tough for me. It pertains to juice bar, and as a chef, it's kind of two different things, because I know the creative process in a kitchen, in general kitchen, you know, you always want to kind of have ideas coming out and not shoot anything down. So you want to try and experiment with this. So I've actually used it before in cooking. You know, we actually we did a granita with green apples, and basically you'll juice straight green apples. You'll add the ascorbic acid to it, and then it will turn a real vibrant green, and you'll freeze it and it will stay vibrant green, and it kind of gives you a real nice sharp acidity, which is great for that application. As pertains to juice bar or anything trying to come off as like the highest quality products, it's very tough from the guest perspective, you know, to be able to see that, especially when to add a preservative that is something you could have naturally, like lemons, limes, oranges, even pineapples, will give you that natural vitamin C. I think that's absolutely the route you have to go, because I mean, just from a guest perspective, they might not know that ascorbic acid is vitamin C, you know, and they just see that on the menu, or, you know, all these different vitamins have their technical names, but I mean, it'd be extremely tough to kind of add it onto your menu and list it on there. And there's not that much of a benefit from it, truthfully, because it really keeps the juice extremely vibrant. But what I find is, for like that application, what I did with green apple juice, it was extremely vibrant. But if I left it out at room temp for an hour, it would go back and be extremely oxidized. You know, it like the effects, the benefits you get from it are very short lived. You know, it doesn't really last as long as natural lemon juice, from my experience. And plus, I mean, what kind of shelf life are you getting with raw juice? I mean, you want 4 to 5 days. Max, you can get 7 days approved. But, I mean, I don't see why you'd want more for a raw product.
What do you think, Olivia? Would you consider doing this in your juice bar?
Okay, so again, I'm always going to come from a owner-operator standpoint and from a branding perspective, because that's what my background is. So I appreciate hearing Chef Ari's and background from a chef, that you're right. Like there's certain obstacles in the kitchen that you're trying to get over, and the number one obstacle in this industry for what we do is shelf life, right? you're constantly playing that game of getting the produce in, producing it, getting it out, hoping you have enough people walk in the door in the next 2 or 3 days to sell it. But you're also preaching that it's this raw, pure product. And so I think it's a slippery slope when you start adding things, when you've built this brand on talking about not adding things. Now, I will say that I know what it's like from an owner-operator standpoint. I know what it's like to look at juice that's expiring and be like, crap, if I could just get another day or two out of this from a shelf life perspective, I could be making money instead of losing money. And I will say that, HPP, high pressure pasteurization is another step that's a slippery slope. And it's one that I've gone down personally at Southern Press Juicery. But again, I don't know why JK Juices did it. Maybe it was to extend the shelf life. For me, we started dabbling in HPP. We do both. We do press in-house on our X1, and we do have a line of juices that we do HPP. And for me, it's a learning situation because we were doing so much volume. I'm talking about millions of dollars in volume. We could not keep up with the production of juice. Like our case was 86th every day. And our X1s, both X1s were going 24/7. I'm talking about midnight shifts, people there all the time. And it got to a point where we couldn't keep up with production. And so guests were coming in. It wasn't a shelf life issue. It's that we didn't have enough manpower and enough storage space for our produce to keep enough juice going. So they would come into a nearly empty fridge and they would see people juicing in the back and they'd be like, I'll just wait for that, Olivia. I'll wait for him to finish that. And I'm like, no, that's been sold. That whatever he's juicing right now it's already paid for, spoken for. So for me, bringing in high pressure pasteurization products that is made on the larger version of the X1, Charlie, whatever that machine is called, huge Big Bertha. But it's a Good Nature machine, and it goes through a high pressure pasteurization. So it's made in the same, I'm drinking one right now. It's made in the same bottle. It's taken to a hyperbaric chamber where it goes underwater under high pressure for 3 seconds, pops back up. There's no heat added. There's no additives. There's no chemicals. And it allows me to extend the shelf life to a 45-day shelf life. And it allows me to have juice in bulk, right? So I was able to pick a couple of SKUs that allowed me to get those in from my co-packer and always have those juice so that my back of the house could focus on other SKUs and making sure we had a full cooler. So I know what it's like to have that slippery slope of like, man, I need to do something to make it to the next step. And I'm just not sure that's a step I personally would take, because then now you're starting to talk about additives. So I can talk about HPP in a different way, that it's still, it's the most kosher of all the ways to pasteurize. It's not heated. Nothing is added. It's the same integrity of the juice that you were drinking. I will say I've never added absorbic acid to anything.
Yeah. And just to be clear for the listeners, what Olivia is discussing is going to a co-packer, a company that will make juice for you. They'll use your recipes and they're making the juice for you.
Yes,
and
they're making the juice for me on a Good Nature machine, same exact recipe. Just in larger batches, and then it goes to a facility that is has a hyperbaric pressure
HPP.
chamber, which is called HPP. And like I said, it's made in the same bottle, made the same way. It's, sealed and put into this hyperbaric chamber, goes underwater for 3 seconds. The product is never exposed to water, just the plastic bottle is. And then in 3 seconds, it pops up and it allows us to extend the shelf life. And it also allows me to order pallets and pallets and pallets of it, which helps, obviously help me get juice out the door when I can't keep up with juice. Now, I will say, though, I don't know if that's the right answer for even Southern Press Juicery for a number of reasons that we can get into now or later. But like Charlie has always told me, Olivia, everybody I've ever seen in my career at Good Nature that has started on HPP that was as successful as you are has closed. And so for me,
or
what did you say? Or
I said like HPP is where good juice bars go to die.
Yes.
They,
so you said it even worse than I did.
They start, they start not on HPP, and then they grow. Maybe they have investors that are pressuring them to like sell in grocery stores or expand, and then they release an HPP line, and then a few months later or a year later, they're out of business. I've just seen it so many times.
Right.
And in my opinion, cold pressed juice isn't meant to be a big business.
Right.
Now, there have been some companies that have succeeded in it, like Suja and Evolution Fresh, but you're talking tens of millions of dollars thrown behind these brands. Not like, a few $100,000 or something. But
and I'll
anyway,
say,
yeah. So I expressed that to you, but
right.
It's
and I'll
obviously
say,
there's exceptions.
I went into the HPP knowing that, right? So we maintained our X1 and we're still producing in house, and it's, probably not even half my menu is HPP. So for us, it was really just the ability to try it and see what it did to us and see if that was worth it for us, if it opened up some doors for us. And, we may not end up sticking with it. It's the guests are able to see in store when something is HPP and when something is made in house. It does obviously open some doors for folks that don't feel comfortable drinking raw juice if they're pregnant or whatever it might be. So again, I understand kind of wanting to get the most out of your business, and whether that's shelf life or volume or whatever. I just think from a branding perspective, adding something is a conversation you need to have with your guests, just like I have the conversation with my guests. Some of our juices in the case are now HPP'd.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it might be a good fit, like combination type thing. I think the biggest misstep that a lot of people do is they have the raw juice available locally, and then they add on the HPP to be able to get to a larger market. And then the misstep is replacing their raw juice with the HPP product, because that raw juice is amazing. It's fresh. It's got a shelf life of 4 days, which is great. But then that's kind of like the magic, but the HPP product, it serves its purpose. It's time and place, to be able to hit the masses and where you might not be able to reach before.
Yes. If I have a favorite local juice bar and they launch an HPP line that's in grocery stores, that's like fine. Like you have to do that to sell wholesale. But I want to know if I go to that location that what I'm buying is still raw,
Right.
And if I was ever confused at that or I wasn't sure, for me, that'd be a deal breaker.
Or if you were misled on it, right?
Especially if I was misled.
Yeah, like
on
there are companies out there, maybe Charlie can name them if he wants to, that have HPP product that's not labeled HPP. I am not one of those companies.
Yeah, I mean, when juicing first started taking off, like there was a whole series of class action lawsuits about companies doing that. Some of the larger companies that now label HPP used to not do it. And there's some class action lawsuits. I don't know what the results were. It's confidential, but so they changed their labeling. And the whole argument is like, well, it's still raw because it's just high pressure processing that doesn't create any heat. It's like, whatever, dude. There's no such thing as raw juice that lasts a month, okay?
Yeah.
There's just not.
Yeah.
In my opinion. People will debate me, but usually the people that debate me are people that use HPP, and it's like obviously a little biased. But
yeah, I mean, again, that's why we do both. It's a tactic, and I think on the JK video, I think I caught that they said that it was something they were trying, but then I thought I heard that it was something that they do, so I got a little confused. But for me, HPP is something that we're trying, and it's maybe it was a band-aid during COVID when I needed it for pure volume. And we're kind of analyzing our sales and looking to see how it doesn't impact consumer sales and obviously food cost and all of those things. But I just think at the end of the day, whatever process you're taking, one, it needs to be listed on the label or on the menu, and your guests need to be very clear about what they're buying, because I think that's a potential for a really big misstep with your guest and with your reputation.
Yeah, I agree. Like the trust level for your local juice bar is so important because you're buying what you believe is a minimally processed raw beverage. Then all of a sudden you find out, oh, actually I thought it was, but it's not. I mean, that's violating trust. But as far as preservation goes, like to me, HPP is fine. Like I'll drink it when that's what I have access to. Like if I'm at Whole Foods, I'll buy HPP juice when I'm there because it's easy. I don't have to go down the street to the juice bar or whatever. but I would never ever buy a juice that had ascorbic acid in it. I just wouldn't.
Well, and I just think from a kitchen perspective too, as an owner operator, I'll defer to Chef Ari, but why wouldn't you just, again, like he said, mess with the pH balance in a different way by, curtailing that recipe to have more citrus in it, pulling, increasing your acidity on that so that you can get a longer shelf life if that's what you needed. That's the route I would go.
It feels like a large processing technique applied to
A small batch.
a raw. Yeah.
And
'Cause,
I
large
honestly,
processors, they just add it.
I know. And I honestly think it's probably just lack of education. I don't know. Like if you're like, oh, well, it's just vitamin C and vitamin C is my oranges. No problem if I add this. But it's like, that's kind of a slippery slope too. I mean, guar gum comes from guar beans. It's like, that's natural too. Are you going to start adding guar gum to your almond milk?
Right. To get a longer shelf life and a better.
Corn syrup comes from corn. You're going to start adding corn syrup to your juices because it makes it taste sweeter?
I was almost going to suggest adding xanthan gum to that oat milk to get that foam last week.
You bite your tongue,
I
Chef.
wasn't.
No,
I wouldn't, but you could.
We would have voted
friggin'
you off the island.
Friggin' MSG comes from seaweed. I mean, it's just like a slippery slope. It's like a lot of these additives are naturally derived chemicals. It doesn't mean that it's okay to start adding it to juice.
And again, you can get that longer shelf life in an easier way, honestly, that you don't even have to have a conversation with the guest about by just, working with your citrus and revamping your recipe, or, if that's what they were after, there's different ways to get there, I think.
Yeah. I mean, just lemon, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. If anyone listening has a different take on that or wants to add anything, leave us a voice message at goodnature.com/radio. Speaking of voice messages, we have 3 today.
Whoa.
I'm excited that we got one all the way from Belgium. A lady named Perrine, I believe. We go ahead and play this.
Hey, hello. I am Perrine. I am the owner of Pimsy Juices in Belgium. I have a question. Here there have been big campaigns a few years ago that advise people against juices because they contain too much sugar. I have my own answers, but I would love to hear yours. How do you respond to that? Thank you in advance for your answers. Have a good day, and sorry for my English.
English was so
People
great.
always say that. It's so cute when foreigners are like, sorry for my English. It's like, no, it's fine. Like,
okay, but let me just say one thing. When I go to another country and I'm speaking, like, I can speak a little bit of Italian, I'm always like, oh, do they think I'm like this American with a cute Italian accent? But I don't think they do. I think it's only when people speak English that it sounds like cute.
well, in Asia, like if you speak like 2 words of their language, like, oh, you speak so good, they get so excited. But it's like, I feel like if you go to France and try to speak French, they just kind of get annoyed.
Yeah, but when you hear somebody with a different accent, you're like, oh, that's sexy. Like, oh, I love his accent.
Right.
Like, I don't think anybody is thinking that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
When
like
we
speaking
go,
their language with your
right.
accent.
Like if I'm trying to speak Italian, I don't think anybody is like, ooh, listen to that.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, maybe.
It's a good
Anyways,
point.
local campaign against sugar.
Yes. All right. Olivia, why don't you
is a good
start on
one.
this one? I'm sure you get this question a lot. in your
Yeah,
juice bar.
I do. And I think having some variety in your menu is really nice. So, we started with, when we first started in 2015, Southern Prince Juicery started with some really easy green juices. Easy green juices means they use apples, right? To make the taste a little bit more palatable, more of a beginner juice. Then as our concept started to grow and we started teaching our guests with us, and they started wanting more and more advanced juices, then our menu started changing and growing along with them. So we'd start replacing apples with pear, deeper, darker greens. We have greens with no sweets, with no sugars at all. So I think I think you should have both, right? I will never buy a juice that is just loaded with ingredients that have a ton of sugar, right? So like if I have a beet, which normally has a lot of sugar, I'm going to pair that with like a tarragon and a mint and some really nice herbs that will add to the flavor, but aren't necessarily I'm not probably going to do like a beet, carrot, orange. It's going to be just like so much natural sugar. But also you could and should get your nutrition labels done. That's really helpful. It is definitely a cause for concern for folks that are diabetic or have to watch their sugar. They do need to understand, the level of sugar that they're taking in. So I think just having conversations with your staff and with your guest, knowing what in your fridge, in your case, has a lower sugar content, has a higher sugar content from those natural fruits. And then, obviously trying to get a nutrition label so that they can decide for themselves if that's too much sugar or if it's not. And just having a really good variety. Put out some juices that don't have any fruits at all so that you can answer with, hey, not everything in here is full of fruits. We're really veggie heavy.
How about you, Ari? Do you have a way to like tell people to educate between natural sugar and added sugar?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, well, this topic came up quite often. I think it was really like a campaign from a lot of
Big
larger
beverage.
manufacturers, I believe, because I mean, I believe a lot of the articles said juice has more sugar than soda, in a lot of cases. And yeah, there's a huge difference. I'm not a nutritionist. I've talked to tons all the time. And I mean, there's a huge difference between natural sugar and refined sugar, similar to what we were just talking about. Your body absorbs it completely differently. The refined sugar, you absorb it instantly. You get that huge spike of energy and then a huge crash, where the natural sugar is more of a progression and has everything else. But the biggest thing is it's grouping it all together as one juice, where there's a huge range of juices, like thinking there's one kind of sandwich.
Right.
Sandwiches are all bad for you. They could be,
Right, yeah.
But
true.
some aren't. It's kind of the same process where you have some sugars or some juices with barely any sugar. You have the green juices that are all nutrients and everything good for you with very little sugar. And then, of course, you got on the other end where pure apple juice, which is loaded with sugar, but it still has it's a natural sugar. It's got a lot of benefits for you. So it's definitely about a balance, what your body needs. There's a huge range for it. And I mean, there's no way that a Coke Zero with like zero sugar is better than a sugary juice. You can get something on both spectrums, but it's all about the natural versus the refined.
And I just never, this really annoys me. Like, I never understand why people overthink juice just because it's put into a bottle. But same thing is like with pregnant people. But let's just say I put a salad in front of you with kale, arugula, spinach, beets, carrots. What else is something that I would choose? Pears, right? Like, nobody would be like, oh my God, Olivia, so much sugar. I cannot possibly eat all of this. I'm going to have a sugar spike and it's going to be the worst day of my life. But for some reason, when you put that in a grinder and you pour that into the juice, the same exact plate of salad that I plated for you, all of a sudden it's like, wait, what's the sugar content on this? This has got to be crazy. I don't understand it. Like, it's just fruits and veggies. And again, you should have a variety in your case. You don't need to have something that's, 9 ingredients deep that's super high in natural sugars, but it's totally fine to eat beets. It's totally fine to eat carrots and apples. Like, your body needs those sugars and breaks them down accordingly. It's totally different than eating, like Chef said, granulated sugar by the spoonful. I just don't know why people like overthink it and overcomplicate it just because we put it in a juicer and then put it in a bottle. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I do get it from a sense like you don't want to be drinking a ton of calories and sugar and eating a ton of calories and sugar at the same time, if you're worried about being overweight or something. So I get it from like sort of a high level sort of why you'd be concerned about it. But I do agree with Ari that there's a big campaign against sugar a couple of years ago from Big Beverage, which just happened to be like right around the time that Coca-Cola announced they were shutting down Odwalla Juice.
Mm-hmm.
And PepsiCo sold Tropicana and Naked Juice in 2021. So here's a series of events. Coca-Cola shuts down Odwalla Juice in 2020. PepsiCo sells Tropicana and Naked Juice in 2021. And then I believe in early 2022, Coca-Cola sells the rest of its stake in Suja. So they completely divested in all their sort of quote unquote more natural like juice lines, which is interesting. And I think the only reason they were interested in those in the beginning was there was this looming tax on added sugar in beverages. Do you guys remember that? It was probably what, like 2016 or 17 or something. But there's like this, or maybe earlier. Sorry, it was earlier than that. But there was some talk in the FDA about adding a tax on added sugar in beverages. So Big Beverage invested in a bunch of juice companies that didn't have added sugar. But then the FDA or whatever agency is regulating that pushed that off and said, we're not going to do that for a long time. And then Coca-Cola and PepsiCo were like, oh, let's get rid of these juice brands. Because if you think about everything that Big Beverage sells, it's mostly a way to package water. Like if you think about soda, it's water with carbonation and a little bit of syrup added and food coloring. It's probably 95% water. Teas are all water. Sparkling water is all water. Water's all water. Juices from concentrate are all water with added concentrate. It's just all about how can we package water to sell it for like $1 or $2 or whatever. And you can't do that with juice because you can't do that with real juice because the cost of goods is so high and it's all juice. So, Marcus Antebbe, the founder of Juice Press in New York, his new juice bar he started is literally called Good Sugar because he's always been very vocal about like this sugar in this juice is not bad for you. It's good for you. So he'd be a good person to ask about this, but he's been talking about Good Sugar for years. Let's see, anything else here? Let's make some notes. Okay, anything else on that, or should we move on to Mr. Nick Edwards
Let's
here?
move on.
All right.
Hey everyone, Nick from Juiced and Aligned in Atlanta here. We were wondering if you or anyone you know has ever used the juice pulp to make the dog biscuits, and if so, what is that experience like? And also, if we were to sell our pulp, what type of price per pound should we look at pricing it at? Thanks.
Ari, you want to start with this one?
Yeah. Why do all our callers have really good radio voices?
Right?
I hope I sound half as good as half these guys do.
What do you
Ari
think
has a good radio
They all got,
voice. I think. Whenever I listen to the
I don't
episode, I'm
know.
like, man, Ari's got the best radio voice out of the whole group for sure.
It's husky.
I don't know. When you listen to yourself, it's like, oh,
I know.
I sound like that. No, so repurposing a pulp, it's great for sure. Because first of all, when you start out, I wouldn't worry too much about it initially because you have a lot going on. There's a lot to do to open your operation. But once you're all set, couple weeks in, month in, start focusing on that for sure because it's such a huge aspect. It's basically stuff you're able to repurpose, make 100% profit off something that you might be discarding. At the very least, easy way out is supporting the farmers and donate them for, pig farms or chicken scrap, anything like that. Farmers always need that product. It's really great for their soil, for compost. So at the very least, set up something like that. In terms of repurposing it, I know Robin put together an amazing dog treat recipe on the Good Nature blog. I know tons of people that make that. I used to make it for my dogs all the time. The important aspect is definitely the ingredients that are in the pulp that you're repurposing for that, because certain items dogs can't have. But on that blog post, when you check it out, there is a link that tells you what dogs can have and what to avoid. Yeah, and I mean,
And
the
you
markup,
can just,
it's completely up to you.
You can just search that on Google, dog biscuit recipe Good Nature. that'll be the first result that comes up for you.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that is the price. I mean, you could charge whatever you want. You know, it's something you were going to throw out. We also have stuff where you could. I've heard of people make breads with it. I'm not a baker. I'm horrible at baking, but yeah, that's the option. We also have a pesto recipe. A lot of it comes down to what kind of pulp you're repurposing. You know, maybe have a few different applications, but it's a great option for sure.
Cool. Do you do anything like this in your juice bar, Olivia?
You know, it's funny. I Googled juice pulp for dog biscuits and Good Nature came up, and I was like, oh, we could just give them this recipe. But, you know, I think just make sure that whatever's in your recipe of whatever juice you're using, obviously first research it and make sure that it's safe for dogs. Like I know, you know, I researched almonds because that's something that we do a lot, and we make granolas and crackers out of our almond pulp. And it's not necessarily dangerous for dogs like a chocolate would be, but it's much more difficult for them to digest. So just do a little bit of research in the background if you feel like you're ready for that step. I would still calculate your food costs just as an interesting thing to do. And as a good practice, you should be calculating your food cost for everything. And then, you know, I think it's a really great branding opportunity to put it in a cute little craft bag with a window where they can see the product, and, you know, a great little sticker that talks about, you know, give your dog some juice too. Juice loving for your dog. I mean, there's so many cute things you can do with it. But I think it's a great idea. I mean, we do use our almond pulp for a lot of different things. We sometimes use it for granola on top of some of our acai bowls. We use them sometimes as flax crackers. So there's a lot of things you can do with your pulp. Yeah, I think it's I think I'll take that idea to my chef and see if he wants to do something with it. I think it's a fun thing to do. It'd be great to do for the holidays, like a little gift from Juice and Aligned at Atlanta for your dog this holiday season. And it's just, you know, a little $5 or $6 bag of treats. I think it's cute.
Yeah, I think sometimes when people forget, like I always have this conversation with people. It's like, well, can I make crackers with the juice ball or whatever? It's like once you press all the juice out of the fruit and vegetable, it really doesn't taste like much anymore. It's just like super fibrous. So it's usually necessary to mix it with other things to make it into something like a cracker or a dog biscuit. Like I think our recipe adds rolled oats. Yeah, adds rolled oats to it. Same thing if you're making a cracker out of it, you're going to have to add seasoning and something to kind of hold it together. On its own, it does not taste good. That's also why it's so hard to use all of it. Like even if you're doing this stuff with your pulp, it's really hard to use all of it because there's so much of it. There's a company in California called Pulp Pantry. They sponsored JuiceCon one year, and they literally take like huge truckloads of this stuff and turn it into chips and crackers and everything. But yeah, I think juice biscuits or dog biscuits are a great way to do it. And also some like little crackers and stuff you can do as well. Is the, after you make almond milk, is what's left, is that basically almond flour, Ari?
Oh my God. It is so satisfying to touch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
no.
favorite thing. It's so amazing.
You can. I mean, it depends. If you're doing dates in it, it kind of makes it real tricky.
Mhm.
You know, but yeah, that stuff is definitely, I mean, you bite it, it's kind of, you need something to drink after. It has no flavor at all.
His other question is about selling it. I guess maybe he means his compost.
Oh,
Or does
I
he mean
thought he
selling
meant
it
selling
to-
the dog biscuit.
I think what he said
maybe.
was selling the pulp, but maybe he
Oh,
meant the dog
sorry.
biscuits. But I do know like Nori on his interview
Right.
mentioned they create the compost and sell the compost. I think there's value in that. I don't think there's any value in just the juice pulp itself. And like if a farm is taking it to compost, it's a service to you that they come pick it up, you know. Oh, but there was a
Right. Yeah.
actually in my notes here. So a company called Our Hive Juice, they replied on our Facebook group a few weeks ago, and I just like screenshotted it because I thought it was cool. This is what they had to say. We have local farmers, parentheses, we put it on our local Facebook groups, pick up our pulp by having them purchase a 17 to 20 gallon feed bin with a tight closure for the pulp, They swing by every other day to swap out with their clean bin. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the old school milk exchange program. Like, leave your empty bottles, we give you full ones. It's like, come with your empty container, we'll fill it up with pulp. You can take it to your farm. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we do that at Southern Press Juicery. We have a worm farm that comes and picks up our pulp, and so and we don't charge them for it. I will say that it for us, because we have such a small kitchen, sometimes it really creates an issue, because normally if we would throw out that pulp every day as part of our waste, you're forever trying to not get fruit flies in your kitchen, right, Chef? But so if we have these containers, and even though they're tightly sealed, sometimes they wouldn't come and pick up for like a week at a time. And so it's stacking and stacking and stacking. And with such a small kitchen, then you're just like, at some point, Chef's going to get mad and be like, just get this stuff out of here. Like, I have produce that's coming in. So I just want to make sure, if you've got somebody that's picking it up, that you've got a good routine, that you know exactly how much to save for them, and it's not a nuance to you. But we do not charge them for that. It's just a courtesy that we do. And then they turn around and they put that in their worm farm, and they use that compost. So.
Yeah. Cool. Nick left a second voicemail too. I'm not going to play that one, but he did ask the difference between Herbivore grinder and the X1 grinder. So the Herbivore is the grinder on the M1 and X1 Mini, which is mechanically different than the one on the X1. And so the explanation for that is, we developed the grinder on the X1 Mini and M1 to work pretty well on everything without having to mess with settings and stuff, because the feedback we got from the X1 owners for smaller juice bars is it's hard to keep training and retraining everybody in proper speed, proper grinder blade, and all this stuff that you have to consider using the X1. So the X1 Mini and M1, the grinder works a little bit differently to work pretty well on everything. You can on the X1, since you can change the settings and have full range of like slow or fast or big teeth or small teeth, you can get better processing out of some ingredients. But so that's the difference. He also asked if it'll ever be Herbivore on the X1. Probably not. I don't think it's something we can make that large. And for the people that do like the configurability, it's actually X1 grinder's a little better in that way. All right, so now we have a voice message from someone. I think he said his name is Priyag from Canada. Play it here.
My name is Priyank. I own the juice and a smoothie bar in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I'm not the original founder. I took over 3 years ago. Currently, all our menu items are gluten-free, and I wanted to find out that if I expand this as, like, if you open up a second store or a franchise, do I have to keep this as gluten-free, or there is an option I can just play by the area?
Livia, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, so I actually just did this. So all of our juice bars are raw, vegan, and gluten-free. There is one item in every store, which is our toast, that is our bread that is locally sourced and at each store used for our toast, that is not gluten-free. So we talk about that on the menu. That is the only item that is not gluten-free, but it is something that we talk about as soon as a guest comes in. We say, "Hey, welcome to Southern Press Juicery. Let me know if I can have any. If you have any questions." And then as you get in conversation, if they're the first timer, you let them know we are vegan. We do use honey, so if you need to substitute that for agave, let us know, because you don't want to piss off the super, like, uber raw people, that vegan people that don't need honey. And then we start talking about everything is also gluten-free except for these menu items, and we'll list that out. Now, the third shop that I just opened actually has a sub fridge that one of our sister restaurants puts in non-vegan items like turkey sandwiches, ham sandwiches, but it is in its own cooler, branded with that own company, because that's in a bank. And so a lot of people come down and sometimes they just want a sandwich, they don't want an acai bowl every day, but it's in its own separate cooler. It's branded as the name of that sister restaurant. And it is obviously all the ingredients are listed. And so we just made it, never mix them in the fridge together. But so I think it's totally fine to start adding in things that are not gluten-free. I think guests are used to seeing stickers or notations on menus that just say, V or, GF for gluten-free. So I think that it's not like somebody's going to order something because it's not gluten. If that makes sense, because it has gluten in it, right? Your only trouble as a owner operator is having gluten-free things limits the things you can put on your menu, right? Like, so it's easy to source things that are not, and it helps, your food costs and stuff like that. So I think it's totally fine to do. I've done it myself. I just think you have to be ready for the conversation, make it visible in your branding and in your logos and written out things, make it obvious on your menu online, and just always cover your bases.
Yeah, and that is not like going from vegan to selling meat. It's not like you're going to have this huge sort of like almost, I don't know, protest or something over it. It just, it doesn't seem like that big a deal to me.
Yeah, it made me very nervous, and it's been fine. I think because of how careful we were about the branding, and we keep our kitchen kosher. We never bring in things that are non-vegan into our kitchen. Those things that are non-vegan are made in a separate restaurant and then brought over already packaged. So we're just really careful about the integrity of that.
Cool. You have anything on this, Ari?
Yeah, I remember cooking like 10, 15 years ago when someone gluten-free coming in, and it'd be so stressful, like the official ones with the celiac disease and the card and can't have any of this product. And it was so stressful, because like, cause a lot of harm. But now it's, I mean, the products that are out there are so much better now. I mean, there's a huge line of gluten-free products, so comparable. I think with your concept, it's already gluten-free. You're looking to expand. It 100% depends on your clientele that's coming in. Are the people that are coming into your operation currently, is that their main draw to your restaurant? If it is, you got to stick with it. If it's one of your core values, I would recommend sticking with it. If not, I mean, do like Olivia mentioned, kind of maybe introducing toast options. Have two separate toasters, one for the gluten-free product, one for the not, and see how it goes. Kind of do a simple test with just getting a new toaster, and seeing how it's perceived by your guests.
Yeah, makes sense. So go ahead. You have our blessing. You may sell the gluten.
Go ahead. Sell the gluten.
All right. Well, just about an hour. I think we can wrap it up. Once again, thank you to my wonderful co-host for joining, and thank you for our awesome customers and our audience that left voice messages today. It definitely makes the episode better when we have these to play. And hope everybody has a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Ciao.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Good Nature.